Hey, can you see where I'm sitting? I am sitting on the edge of a dry pond, a tank, we call them in Texas. This tank represents something that we all deal with every day, and that's called disappointment. My friend bought $1,000 worth of fish when this was filled with water after a nice rain, and he put them in there so his grandkids could fish them out. And then the tank drained dry, and most of the fish were lost. What a disappointment. So many of our hopes and dreams and expectations on how the world should go for us are disappointing. We all have disappointment, but we don't all deal with it well. How does a Christian deal with disappointment? Someone who has faith that God is good and that He wants to bless us. The way you deal with it is realizing that God's perspective is much bigger than ours. He sees how every little thing is related to the whole and His plan to bless many people. Even in disappointments, He is working to get us to think about His kingdom and His plans rather than our own. And from His perspective, He's going to work it out for good. He always has a good purpose, but He doesn't tell us what that purpose is because that's what makes Him God. He gets to create good things and surprise people when He's ready to do that. He also has a great plan, and His plan always includes to ultimately give us the greatest blessing, like taking us to heaven. Joseph in the Old Testament learned about how to deal with disappointment as a man of faith. Remember how his dad gave him a coat of many colors and marked him as the next patriarch? Remember how God gave him dreams that said everybody would bow down to him? And he thought his family would just be so excited about the anticipation that he had that he was going to be great. The brothers were very jealous, and it turned to hate. They sold him into slavery. How disappointing. And then they sold him, the slave traders sold him to Potiphar, and Potiphar's wife lusted after him. And when he ran from her to do the right thing, he expected God to bless it. He was thrown into prison. How disappointing. In prison, some guys had dreams that he could interpret, and they were the guys that worked for the king, the Pharaoh, and he thought, this is going to be my way out. And then the butler, one of them, the one that lived, he forgot Joseph. How disappointing. Think of all the disappointments over 13 years. He could have been so bitter. But then after 7 years of good harvest, and he had saved all all the grain, and then the 7 years of famine, and he's second in command in Egypt because God had raised him up to that. Here come his brothers, and they bowed down to him just like the dreams had said. And he could think, my disappointment's over, and now I'm going to get even. But he didn't. Instead, he was benevolent and loving. And he told his brothers, don't be mad at yourselves. You meant to harm me, but God meant it for good, to save many lives and to save our family, a remnant. Joseph understood God's perspective, God's purpose, and God's plan, and he trusted God's goodness and his love and benevolence and grace. And Joseph knew he didn't deserve it, and Joseph knew his brothers didn't deserve it, but grace is just all about that. We don't deserve it. When you think about what you're disappointed about, put it back in its place. It's part of a much bigger plan. Realize God has a bigger perspective, a bigger purpose, and a bigger plan, and it has to do with you becoming like Him and learning to share His benevolence, His mercy, and His grace. So whenever you're disappointed, actually let it give you anticipation that God's going to surprise you in the way that He comes through, and He's going to make you a person that surprises other people, not with bitterness, not with getting even, but with giving love. Hey, have a great day.